The dawn light crept over the horizon, casting a soft glow on the city of Bethlehem. As the morning call to prayer echoed from the minarets, the narrow alleys began to stir. Shopkeepers emerged to sweep stoops and unwrap bundles of fresh produce. The tantalizing aroma of za'atar and simmering chickpeas mingled with the sounds of bleating goats and puttering mopeds. In his hotel room, Joseph's alarm beeped sharply, rousing him from sleep. He sat up, smoothing back his dark hair. After a quick shower, Joseph dressed meticulously in a formal grey suit, crisp white shirt, and muted red tie. Gazing at his reflection, he gave a curt nod, pleased with his professional appearance. Joseph D'Souza was a lead systems architect from Bangalore, renowned for his expertise in C4ISR, command control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. The Israeli defense company Elta Systems had contracted his firm to collaborate on an advanced radar project. Joseph's technical skills and fluency in English made him the ideal choice to spearhead the Indian team. Snapping his briefcase shut, Joseph left his minimalist hotel room and took the elevator down to the lobby. He stepped out onto the street, the organized chaos of Bethlehem washing over him. Pausing, he consulted the map on his phone and oriented himself before striding purposefully towards the office tower that was his destination. At the gleaming Elta Systems headquarters, Joseph was greeted by Mr. Ezra Lev, head of the Israeli project team. "Mr. D'Souza, welcome. It's a pleasure to finally meet face to face," Ezra said warmly, shaking Joseph's hand. "Likewise, Mr. Lev. I look forward to a productive partnership between our companies," Joseph replied formally, offering a polite smile. The men made their way to the state-of-the-art conference room. As Joseph unpacked his laptop and neatly arranged his folders on the table, Ezra chatted amiably about the weather, asking if Joseph was comfortable at his hotel. Joseph gave brief, courteous responses, keeping the conversation focused on work matters. Once all the team members had gathered, Joseph cleared his throat and began his presentation on his company's technical capabilities and proposed project plan. He walked through the details with crisp precision, highlighting specifications on the large display screen. His slides were meticulously organized, with immaculate charts and data models. The Israelis listened attentively, frequently interrupting to ask incisive technical questions, which Joseph fielded adeptly. After 2 hours of intense discussion, they agreed to break briefly for coffee. "A cup of coffee, Mr. D'Souza," Ezra gestured to the gleaming machine. "No, thank you. Just water for me," Joseph replied. He was careful to avoid anything that might affect his concentration and clarity. As the others doctored their coffees with milk and sugar, Joseph reviewed his annotated documents. He had compiled meticulous notes on the integration challenges and highlighted technical risks to be mitigated. Ezra peered over Joseph's shoulder. "Ah, I can see you've done your homework. Good, good. I'm glad we have someone so thorough on board." Joseph gave a deferential nod. "Preparation is key. I believe strongly in understanding requirements down to the finest details." The conversation flowed smoothly as they delved into potential capabilities and limitations of the radar under development. Joseph impressed the team with his technical acumen and methodical approach. By meeting's end, they had agreed on an aggressive but achievable project timeline. After warm handshakes all around, the team dispersed back to their departments, and Joseph headed outside. He had a few days before his return flight to India. After consulting his guidebook, he opted to take a walk through the bustling market area, wanting to get a taste of this historic city. Weaving through the crowds, Joseph took in the sights and sounds. Spice vendors called out prices as they scooped fragrant cumin and turmeric into bags. Women haggled over elaborately embroidered dresses. Locals sat sipping mint tea and clicking backgammon pieces on well-worn boards. At a small cafe with outdoor seating, Joseph ordered a lemon and mint drink. Perched on a stool, he watched everyday life unfold on the street before him. Children laughed and chased each other, kicking up small clouds of dust in their wake. Heads bent together over plates of falafel and hummus as conversations flowed in rapid-fire Arabic and English. Scruffy cats wound their way hopefully between tables. Joseph felt at once an outsider, yet curiously at home in this Mediterranean milieu, so different from the formal environs in which he usually operated. Gazing into the distance, Joseph could just make out the spires of the Church of the Nativity. A look of reverence crossed his face. The Catholic Church held deep meaning for him, a sanctuary of faith in the divine since childhood. Perhaps he would have time to make a brief visit, to sit in quiet contemplation amid centuries of tradition. Just then, a burst of lively music caught his ear, the rhythmic notes of the oud paired with hand drums. He turned to see a group of young boys performing a dak, the traditional Palestinian folk dance. Their steps were nimble and joyful as they whirled their kafia scarves. Joseph watched respectfully, appreciating this cultural expression. Though worldly in his professional sphere, at heart he was still a traditional Indian man. Glancing at his watch, Joseph decided he should check in at home before the day grew too late. He found a quiet corner and dialed his mother's number on WhatsApp. "Hi Amma, it's me. Wanted to let you know I'm doing well here. How are you and Appa?" His tone was warm yet brief, mindful of the time difference and his mother's busy schedule in managing their household. "Okay, I'll call tonight." A fleeting shadow crossed his face as he ended the call. Was that a touch of loneliness? But it passed quickly as he resumed his efficient persona. Settling the bill, Joseph consulted his map once more. The Church of the Nativity was just a 20-minute walk away. He set off at a brisk pace, briefcase in hand. Along the way, he paused to jot quick notes in his pocket journal, remarking on snippets of conversation that revealed local culture and attitudes. Though technically here for work, he saw this as an opportunity to expand his worldview. Joseph had a philosopher's streak beneath his pragmatic exterior. At a junction, the stone walls and archways of the market gave way to more residential streets. Joseph walked slowly, observing the pastel facades and wrought-iron balconies. The pace was more languid here. An elderly man sat puffing a nargileh pipe while reading his newspaper. The tantalizing aroma of taboon bread wafted from a bakery. As a family passed by, with the mother wearing hijab pushing a stroller while the father pointed out birds to their young son, Joseph discreetly pulled out a small camera. Capturing candid shots of daily life and architectural details was a personal hobby. Photography allowed him to exercise his artistic eye and revealed a softer side beyond his serious professional mien. Nearing the historic district, Joseph came upon a shop selling religious artifacts and crafts. He stepped inside, where the owner welcomed him cheerfully. "Aslan wa sahlan, how may I help you?" "Good afternoon. I wanted to look at the olive wood carvings you have. Are they made locally?" Joseph inquired. The shopkeeper affirmed they were handicrafted, right in Bethlehem. As Joseph examined the crosses and nativities, he asked respectfully about the customs and traditions behind each piece, genuinely interested in their cultural significance. After selecting a carved cross as a gift for his parish priest back home, he thanked the man warmly and continued on his way. The Church of the Nativity soon came into view. Joseph quickened his pace, entering the sanctuary through a humble doorway. Inside, he dipped his fingers in the baptismal font and made the sign of the cross. He found a pew near the back, away from the handful of other visitors. Kneeling down on the cool stone floor with his head bowed, he silently recited the Lord's Prayer and Hail Mary, taking comfort in the familiar words from childhood. This was a personal moment of devotion, a touchstone of stability in the midst of an unfamiliar setting. After some time, Joseph rose and slowly walked the perimeter of the nave, observing the ornate icons and examining relics on display behind glass. He paused thoughtfully before a particularly striking painting of Mother Mary in traditional Palestinian robes, appreciating the fusion of cultures embodied in the artwork. This church contained layer upon layer of rich history, both temporal and divine. Joseph contemplated the joy, solace, and timeless ritual that had unfolded within these walls for 2 millennia. Approaching a clergyman lighting candles, Joseph hesitantly made an introduction and asked if he might have a few minutes of his time. "Of course, my son," the priest replied graciously. "My name is Father Elias. What brings you here today?" Joseph explained he was visiting from India and was curious to learn more about the church's history and spiritual significance. The priest nodded knowingly and proceeded to share insights about the structure of the basilica, the various chapels and ornate artworks, and the significance of the Nativity grotto located beneath the main altar. Joseph listened attentively, following up with thoughtful questions to deepen his understanding. After nearly half an hour of edifying discussion, Joseph thanked the priest profusely for his time and wisdom. This conversation added invaluable perspective to my brief visit. I appreciate your hospitality and sharing your knowledge. Outside once more, Joseph found a stone bench in the square facing the church's imposing facade. He took out his journal and pen, noting down the key insights from his talk with Father Elias. Glancing at his watch, he saw that the afternoon was waning. After stowing his notebook and adjusting his tie, Joseph set off once more down the winding lanes. Evening was descending now, the slanting light taking on a golden cast. The crowds had thinned somewhat. Shopkeepers were packing up their wares, and the aroma of home cooking wafted from open windows. In a small municipal park, Joseph settled on a creaky wooden bench to rest his weary feet. The trees rustled gently in the evening breeze. It was a welcome moment of quiet after a day full of new sights and sounds. Just then, a worn football came bouncing across the cobblestones, quickly followed by a pack of shouting children. Joseph involuntarily flinched at the sudden clamour intruding on his solitude. But seeing their smiling faces, he felt a smile soften his own features. One of the little girls chased after the ball, her ponytail flying. As she grabbed it up, she caught Joseph's eye and grinned. "You are visiting Bethlehem. Do you want to play with us?" she called out merrily. Joseph chuckled, touched by her innocent warmth. "I'm afraid I never learned football. But please, keep playing. Here." He dug in his briefcase for his packet of biscuits and handed them to the children. "A snack for all your running around." "Shukran, shukran," they chorused. Waving their thanks, they resumed their lively game. Joseph leaned back contentedly on the bench, observing their youthful energy with a hint of wistfulness. But the sun was nearly set now, so Joseph hoisted his briefcase and headed back towards the hotel. In his room, he meticulously hung up his suit and placed his polished Oxfords just so beneath the bed. Relaxing his tired feet, he reviewed the day's work documents and added detailed notes on the interactions with the Israeli team. Satisfaction mingled with anticipation for the challenging project ahead. He also jotted down reflections on his explorations of the city, the tastes, smells, snippets of overheard conversations. It had been an illuminating, if lengthy, day. Joseph was an introvert at heart, and too much stimulation wore him out. Yet he felt enriched by this glimpse into a culture so different from all that was familiar. Laying back on the crisp sheets, Joseph video-called his family back in Bangalore. "Hi, how are you?" He listened affectionately as his father gave him a quick recap of his day. "Don't worry, Appa. We'll be home in just a couple more days. I'll bring you back a little souvenir from my trip. Make sure you get some rest." After saying goodnight and making plans to call again the next day, Joseph ended the call, his fingers lingering on the screen a moment. Joseph splashed cool water on his face and stood before the mirror, inspecting his stubble. Should he shave again now, or in the morning? Meticulous as always, he opted for a quick shave before bed. Ritual and routine soothed him. In comfy sweats now, Joseph moved to the window and looked out at the bustling scene below. Strings of lights had come on, dotting the square with a festive glow. Strains of Arabic music filtered up from a restaurant down the street. The muezzin's call to night prayer had sounded not long ago, the haunting melody still echoing in Joseph's mind. What a trial and blessing it was to step outside one's cultural comforts, Joseph mused. The unfamiliar and unpredictable raised anxiety, yet also granted the gift of an expanded worldview. He smiled, realizing that in small ways he too had lowered his guard today, daring to connect with people and place in a more personal, less regimented fashion than was his tendency. The very heart of faith, it seemed to him, lay in setting aside preconceived notions and opening one's mind to radical empathy. Settling onto the bed, Joseph took out his tablet and recorder. Maintaining this video diary was a private ritual when he travelled. More candid and raw than his orderly journal notes, these impromptu ramblings helped him process experiences and gave outlet to emotions he tended to keep bottled up. "What a day it's been," he began. Over the next 20 minutes, the thoughts and feelings he had internalized all day came pouring out. He mused on everything from the technical prospects of the new contract to his awe upon entering the ancient church of the Nativity. He described poignant moments of connection, like the family he'd passed on the street and the exuberant children in the park. Impressions and memories flowed freely. By the end, Joseph felt cleansed, his mind settling into calmness. After ablutions and a quick prayer of thanks, Joseph tucked into bed with his e-reader. He had downloaded several books on Palestinian culture and history that he was determined to consume. Ever the lifelong learner, today's experiences had only fueled his curiosity and thirst for knowledge. Sometime later, yawning, Joseph set the device aside. He murmured the Lord's Prayer once more, finding comfort in the familiar words. Drawing the sheets close, Joseph was lulled by the steady susurration of traffic on the street below. This day had been rich, but draining in many ways. As he drifted off, his last thoughts were of home, their presence a constant, though far away. Soon, he slept deeply. At precisely 6 a.m., Joseph's cell phone alarm pierced the silence. Without hesitation, he reached out a steady hand to quiet its insistent beeping. Today was another full day of collaboration with the Elta Systems team. He needed to be sharp. After a quick shower, Joseph selected a crisp blue shirt to pair with his grey suit. A splash of colour seemed fitting after yesterday's journey across cultural barriers. He gazed at his reflection in satisfaction. As he brewed a cup of black coffee, he meticulously reviewed the meeting agenda and technical documents. By 6:45 a.m., Joseph was locking his hotel room and stepping briskly into the new day. The city was already astir, the rhythm of commerce and community rising to meet him.